David, are you going to eat it or not?
No. No, I am not.
So back in April, we decided to start a new video series because of the Huawei P20 Pro. The changes in the camera were so significant that the only way to review it properly was to have a separate video just for the camera features alone. But even though the video served its purpose and we learned that the camera was great, we also learned that there was room for improvement even with all of its spec sheet. And now that we've got a new kit in town, with a couple of extra changes, how about if we do this one more time? I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocket Now, and let's see what the Huawei Mate 20 Pro can do from the beautiful Taiwan. So we're currently in a sector called Jiaofen, which is famous for its historical gold mining. Once again, a disclaimer, this is not a full review. That is going to be a separate video, mainly because, one more time, the features on this camera are so significant that one video is not enough. We're back in Taipei in our hotel, and just to give you a preamble, we crowned the Huawei P20 Pro as one of the best cameras of early this year, mainly because, not just of its software capabilities, but because of all the hardware that was included in the package. Now, I guess I honestly have to give that title to the Huawei Mate 20 Pro, mainly because you've got the hardware, you've got the software, but then there are some added enhancements that I really love. Huawei dubs it its thinking lens tuned by Leica. We still have 3 cameras, but they now have some added functionality. The primary shooter is of a whopping 40 megapixels at f1.8 aperture and a 27mm equivalent, with an interesting play of pixel binning that merges 4 pixels into 1 to provide you with more light in a 10 megapixel shot by default, but that you can switch to 40 megapixels as an option. The second is the return of an 8 megapixel telephoto at f2.4 aperture and an 80mm equivalent, and the new addition of a 20 megapixel wide-angle camera at f2.2 instead of the monochrome, with a 16mm equivalent. I've always said that if one company could figure out a way to provide all 3 angles, regular, wide, and telephoto in one module, I would be sold, and this is it. But let's also praise this module. I love this design. It is completely unique, and I love how the flash just complements the whole array. Probably one of my favorite things about this phone. There's also a strong play of software here with Huawei's new Master AI 2.0. In the past, scene detection would focus mainly on objects or lighting. Now the camera is able to detect when using the wide-angle camera is more convenient, or when a super macro would also help you get a better shot. There's also the addition of other AI enhancements like 4D predictive focus, object recognition, active tracking of subjects in real time, etc. So now that we've covered the added functionality of the camera, in addition to the more mature software, how are the photos? In a word, I would call them fantastic. One of the things that I really liked about the Mate 10 Pro that I felt was missing about the P20 Pro was that Leica approach of more true-to-life photos where even grain is a feature. The Mate 20 Pro is more subtle about saturation, more balanced about its use of color, and less aggressive about sharpening. I know the phrase of a phone mimicking a DSLR gets tossed around a lot, but if you're accustomed to using Panasonics, which also collaborate with Leica, the photos on the Mate 20 Pro are pretty darn close. But with the added functionality that mirrorless cameras aren't really smart about what they see, they only meter and shoot, while the Mate 20 Pro adapts to what it sees and boosts the results where it should. There are also some additional modes in scene detection being added to AI. Like, for example, we're currently at the Golden Waterfall in Taipei, and the phone detects that there is a waterfall and adapts absolutely everything to take the better shot. And then we've got the advantage of how the other camera lenses complement the experience of photography. Most people question things like the need for a telephoto lens, for example. Sure, it's good for zooming into subjects, but their best use, in my opinion, is for street photography. The crop serves to help you feel that sort of postcard effect, where it almost feels like if you were there. The Mate 20 Pro is able to do 3x optical zoom and 5x hybrid zoom. And up to 10x, though, that's more digital.
And this is seriously still the camera that I trust for zoom photography. I feel that this is the only case where you get true detail.
And yes, sadly, the monochrome sensor is no more. If you want to take black and white photos, there is a mode within the settings to enable monochrome photos, but this is pretty much a filter. That being said, I feel that making the trade-off for a wide-angle camera is worth it in every way. See, the wide-angle camera serves two purposes. First, at 0.6x, you can take a wider shot, which is a more epic photo in certain sceneries. In most cases, AI will detect when wide is more recommended, but I love that it won't adjust unless you accept the switch. And then the second purpose is probably my favorite, which is super macro, where you can get as close as 2.5 centimeters from your subject and take some really awesome close-up shots. It's very hard to find this functionality on a phone. But if you want to get into the truly epic conversation, let's talk about night mode. Huawei continues to impress with its way to allow users to take long exposure shots and stitch together the best parts. If you can't hold the phone still, you might not notice much of a difference between the regular photo and the night mode, and that's mainly because the phone will select the first photo. This is great because you know you're still getting a good shot regardless if you held the phone still or not. But for those times when you were able to do a good job at holding it still, this phone can really push out light out of a scene, up to the point where there are certain cases where the result looks surreal. I've noticed that whenever I don't enable night mode, some of the photos result as pretty much whatever my eye is seeing. Portrait mode is interesting. You don't really have the flexibility to edit a photo after you've taken it, but I kinda don't think that you'll actually want to do that. I have this photo of my kids that I show everyone where we have a backlit scenario. The light was dim, and wow, the photo is probably one of my favorites of all time. I won't sit here and tell you that the effect is the most natural, but it does work really well, and it has the advantage that you don't really have to step back to get your shot. There are some optional lighting scenarios and gimmicks available, but you know I stay away from those. And well, our experience filming this outside was cut short because it's raining in beautiful Taipei. But let's talk about another important feature, which is definitely the selfie camera, as well, the specs here are fantastic. We're talking about a 24 megapixel shooter at f2.0 aperture and a 26mm equivalent. Photos are good, and I love that Huawei now has a setting for HDR on the viewfinder, as one of the most common problems with selfies are blown out backgrounds, as the camera meters for you and not for the background. I won't say that the results are the best, and even if you've got all the depth sensing technology to allow for really good selfie portraits, at the moment it kind of seems like if something's missing, because I don't really notice much of a difference between selfie portraits and regular shots, but it could just be my unit. Video recording has received some very significant improvements if you compare the Mate 20 Pro with the P20 Pro. I have a full separate video about my experience vlogging with this phone during the Porsche experience of the Mate 20 RS, and in a nutshell, we now have stabilization in 4K and pretty much every other mode. There's also stabilization with selfie video, and I like that the crop is not so aggressive to achieve it. And then probably some of my favorite enhancements have to do with the filters, where you can play sort of like the same effect that you see in SimCity, where you select a specific portion of the video, and in real time, it'll only color specific portions of the video and the rest will be in black and white. And then there is the benefit of the larger sensor. I took this video in London where the sensor allows this amazing shallow depth of field in video. But the only thing that I feel could improve is the codec, as video seems a bit over-sharpened or overexposed in certain scenarios. But I do believe that it has everything to do with the fact that I recorded almost everything in a gloomy scenario, and not necessarily with the best lighting. Overall, what can I say? The Huawei Mate 20 Pro is really hard to beat when it comes to photography. The hardware is here, up to the point where it's really hard to find all this package somewhere else, and we also have an interesting play of software. And sure, not everything is perfect, but the Huawei P20 Pro was proof that the company could update the phone and make it really good. A lot of the bugs that I complained about are ironed out right now. So definitely, it's really hard for me not to recommend the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. This is pretty much one of my favorite picks as one of the best smartphones of 2018. I mean, you've got the photography, and this this sleek design just makes it really hard to beat. Let us know what you think about this phone in the comments down below, and while you're at it, make sure you follow us on social media, subscribe to both our channels, English and Spanish, for more videos like this one. You can follow me on Twitter, Jaime_Rivera, on Instagram at Jaime Rivera. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I'm Jaime Rivera, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.